everybody, welcome to Push Your Luck video. My name is Eric and today we'll be looking at 2015 release Discoveries. This is published by Ludonauti and distributed by Asmodee. So this is a 2 to 4 player game. It plays about, I think, 45 minutes to an hour or so. This is by designer Cedrick Chaboussit, and also the art is by Vincent Dutrait. So I really like the artist, one of my more favorite artists in the board game industry. So the designer Cedrick also brought you the game Lewis and Clark, which is what Discoveries is based on. So there are quite a lot of comparisons between Lewis and Clark and Discoveries. You could say that Discoveries is like the lighter version of Lewis and Clark, because Discoveries has dice in it, and it's not so much of a race as compared to Lewis and Clark. So let's take a look at the game components. How do you play Discoveries? And I'll give you my thoughts about it. Alright, so this is what you get in the game of Discoveries. First, there's a main player board. Now this is where after you've used your dice, you'll be placing your dice here. So for example, after you've used this dice here, then you'll be placing it here, for example. So there are symbols there for you to place. Take note that the main board is kind of split into two sections. So there'll be a whole set of dice here, there'll be another set of dice here. This will come into play later on when we talk about the actions that you can do during your turn. There's also 3 Native American Indian cards here and 3 expedition cards here. So this is the initial setup here and here. You also have a whole stack of cards. Now the cards are dual-sided, so one side will show the Native American Indian tribe. There will be the name of the tribe, the actions or the benefits that you need to trigger it, and the benefits that they provide. It will also show you whether this Native American Indian tribe is hostile or friendly. So in this case, this symbol means it's friendly. This symbol will mean that it is hostile. There's also, some of them will have this TP icons here. This is for endgame scoring. I'll explain how you calculate this later on. The other side will show you the expeditions. So these are the expeditions that your team of explorers are trying to cover. So if you can complete them, and you need to complete them all at one go. So if you can complete them, then you get to keep the card, and the card will give you certain benefits. So for example, in this case, you get 6 points, and there's a TP icon here. In this case, you will have this symbol. So this symbol is also part of endgame scoring, which I'll explain later. The purpose is to collect different sets of icons. So there's 4 different sets of icons. So if you manage to collect all 4, you get more points. So if this is the animal icon here. Okay. Each player will also have its own their own player board. So this is their own player board here, which will have a lot of information. These are the actions that you can do during your turn, as part of your turn. Each player will also have 5 of their own colored dice. Alright, which when the game starts, you roll them all, and this will be the if you roll them all, and this will be the actions that you can do. You can also put the dice that you haven't used yet in this nice blank area, so all the other players can also easily see what you can possibly do, or what actions you may possibly do in the next few rounds. Each player will also have this handy kind of a player aid in a way. It's a nice cardboard. Alright. It will also tell you what the endgame scoring are. So for 4 players, whoever has the most number of TPs will get 12 points, 8 points, 4 points. Then the number of different animals you have, you get 3, 8, 15, 24. For 2 or 3 players is less. Alright, it will be less scoring. Okay. It also tells you who you are, so you can role play this if you wanted to. So to explain the player board, these are the different actions that you can take during your turn. So later on when I go to the how to play, I'll explain what they do. So it's also a very nice thick cardboard. It's not like paper. And each player will also start with 1 expedition card they draw from they choose from the market here. So they choose 1 and then you replenish. Choose 1 and replenish. So in turn order, you'll be choosing and replenishing it. And yeah, so there are also a set of grey dice. So depending on the number of players that start the game, there'll be a number of grey dice available in the stock. So everything is nicely done. The quality of the components is really nice. Very good high quality components. let's talk about the dice a bit. So the dice has different faces on them. You'll see that there's not your typical six-sided dice. So there's two faces with footprints, one with a horseshoe, one with this A, which means action. All right, one with the Native American Indian head icon here. All right, so those are the different icons you have, and they'll come into play when I explain how do you play the game. So let's jump quickly into how do you play the game. Now, players are teams of explorers, and you're trying to score points either by completing expeditions and or collecting sets of stuff or having the most TP. So as mentioned, if you complete expeditions, you'll get points. For example, this one will give you 9 points if you complete this expedition. You also will get different points as mentioned just now. You get different cards with different symbols. You get points. You have the cards with the most TP symbols. You also get points as well. So you're trying to get points, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game will win. The game will end when when a player cannot replenish this anymore. So you cannot replenish this anymore when all these cards are empty and the draw piles are empty as well. Then you can no longer replenish this anymore. It will trigger the end of game, and then everyone else will have if it was depending on who the start player is and who triggered the end of game. And everyone else should have equal number of rounds, and then whoever has the most points will win. So how do you play the game and get the points then? During your turn, you can choose two different types of things to do. Either you're taking actions or you're resting. So let's talk about taking actions. Taking actions, you need to choose one phase to use, and then you can use as many of the dice that has the same face as you've chosen as you want. But you must always use at least one dice. So what do I mean? For example, if I want to choose the Indian head faces, so I can use this 2 die, or I can also choose to use one of the die and leave the other one still active. Now, how do I use actions? How do I use these dice for actions then? You will see that each of the player board will have a lot of these symbols. What these mean is that you need to use dice to place it there and to activate the action here. So there are also symbols where it's just a plain square or the square with arrow. So for plain squares, whenever you want to use this action, you will leave your dice there. So for example, if I had the horseshoe symbol, if I want to use this action, if I chose the horseshoe symbol face, I'll take as many as I want from the board. I'll place them where I can. So I can use this, put this here for example, and it will be left here, alright, until I complete this entire action, and then it will be triggered. If there's arrows, when I use it here, after I've used it, this dice will go onto the board as used. So for example, for this, since it's a horseshoe, I'll put it here in this region here. Okay, so I'll explain what these actions do. This means that you can exchange your current expedition card with another expedition card on the board. So you always have one expedition card here. So this will mean that I'll take this and change it to anyone there and replace it with another one. So I can replace it with this one, for example, or any of them. Any of them as a one. Next action is this is to engage with the Native American Indian tribes and hire them. So this symbol means that you are hiring a friendly Native American Indian tribe, and this will be a hostile Native American Indian tribe. So when I have this, I'll put this here, and as mentioned, because of the arrow, I'll now place this dice is used now. I'll put it here in that used area. So I can choose from here which Native American Indian tribe I want. So if I chose the first one, I can only take this one because it's the only one that's friendly right now. So I'll put it in my player area. In addition, I'll also get one gray dice. So I'll get the gray dice from the supply, roll it, and then put it in my ready area. Now, if you have run out of gray dice to take from the supply, you can now take a gray dice from the player who has the most number of gray dice in their area. Right? So essentially, you're stealing one gray dice from them. Okay. After someone has taken that, you replenish it as well. So if it is a hostile tribe, I'll need two of these. All right. I'll use them here. So you see, there's 2 arrows as well. So this 2 will come to here, and I'll take any one of these 2 then, which are both hostile. So I can take this for example. Now these cards will give you certain benefits. I'll explain what they do later. But you could probably decipher from now that all these are like icons. So for example, if I had this, these are action spaces where I can put the dice there and trigger this action. So these are the actual moving, which will allow you to complete expedition cards. Alright, so this one means you have one horse icon. This is 2 feet icon. 1 feet dice will be placed here. The other feet dice will be placed on the board after you use it. This you have 3 of them. 2 of them will be placed on the board. Then the last one will be placed here, and all 3 of them needs to be the same. This will mean that you can use any one dice. You can then change 2 ready dice of any type into 2 of the same. Alright, this is what it means, 2 of the same. Okay, so how do these are actions? So how do you trigger all this? So if I have an action dice like this, for example, and I already previously have 1 dice here, like so. So when I put my action dice here, I now trigger this. So I now get 3 river. I need to use it immediately. Alright, any leftover rivers that you have not used will not be kept. There's no remainder, there's no bank. So you need to use it immediately and use it now. What happens is after you have used it, you take the dice that you used it. You see this little symbol here. It means that you take the dice you've used and just roll them again and then put them back into your ready pool again. So this is another way to trigger to get your dice back if you wanted to, but it's not the efficient way. I'll explain why later on. So how do I do all these expedition thingies? Alright, so what it means is that if, for example, I have this card as my expedition, it needs 2 river crossings to be able to complete this expedition. So if I had this and I triggered it, so if I had this and then I had this, so I trigger this. Right now I have 2 river crossings I can do. So what happens is I can now complete this. So after I complete this, I take it from my player board and put it here. Alright, this is where you'll be keeping all the cards that you've completed. So I can put it here like that and use this to cover it. So it's supposed to be secret as well. Then I'll take the 2 dice I've just used and roll them, and then this will be my dice that I can use in the next turn. So one thing about completing the expeditions, there's two things about it. One thing is if you can complete 2 at a time, then you get 1 free action. What do I mean by 2 at a time? So for example, if I had 1 here, right, I can complete this one, and I have enough actions from my tableau or from my Native American Indian tribes that help me to complete another one on the board, on the market here. I can do it. Let's say first one I can complete this too. I put it here. Alright, I cover it. I immediately get another free turn. So after I replenish this, I can get to goal again. So that's quite important to take note of, because that's how a lot of people chain their actions and then they get a lot of things that they can do and score a lot of points at one go. So that's a very powerful action to take note of. The last thing to note about this traveling thing is that you need to fulfill everything. You need to complete all of them in full. So you cannot do like oh, I complete 1 river now, then I complete another river later on with this action. So a good example would be here, for example. Alright, so let's say I have this card now, right? You see that it's either 2 river 1 mountain or 1 river and 2 mountains. Alright, now if I had this available and this available, so I trigger them. I have 3 rivers and 2 mountains. If you think about it, I can complete this too, which is like 3 in overall. It's like 3 rivers and 2 mountains, but as I mentioned, you need to complete them in full. So I can't do this, which means that if I have this 3 river will be spent here. So even though I only cross 1 river, the remaining 2 will be lost because I need to complete in full. So I'll complete a river crossing using these rivers that are available. Then I complete my mountain crossing here. So then so this 2 allows me to complete this, but it will not allow me to complete this because the remaining 2 rivers that I had cannot be used for this 2 because they are. If you think about it, it's like that, and I already used up my river crossing here, and I cannot use the remainder river crossing to cross here. So that is the interesting thing about it. It can be a bit quirky if you explain it to people the first time, but after you play a few rounds, you kind of get it. So you know that if I want to do this, for example, alright, if I want to do this, I'll need to make sure I have all 3 actions. Alright, so for example, maybe this I can use this 2 rivers to cross this 2 first. I use this mountain to cross this, then use this 3 rivers to cross this. So it may look simple. I should be able to complete it with 2 actions, but actually you need all these 3 actions to be triggered before you can complete these 2. Okay. Now, so that's all the actions that you can do. There's also action on the cards, on the Native American Indian cards you can use as well. Now, the next thing you can do during your turn is to rest. So when you're resting, you're actually taking back dice. You're either taking dice from this section or this section, regardless of color. So you can actually take other people's dice. So for example, if the blue have already used dice here and gray dice has been here as well, for example, you can now take all these dice when you're resting, roll them, alright, and you put them in your ready area. So that's one way of doing it. So you can rest by taking dice here or dice here, or you can take back your own colored dice from anywhere on the board, including other players' play area. So for example, if blue decides to rest next round, he could take this dice away from me that I already had and take it back to his play area. So this is a very interesting mechanism because you may think that, oh, there's so many dice here, it's so juicy, I'll now take it and use it, and having more dice is always better because then you have more options, more things that you can do that you could possibly trigger in the next few rounds. But you need to be aware of what blue may be doing. Blue may be at the end of his action, he has no more actions he want to do, or he may be just vindictive, so he may take back his dice, and then so you kind of lose dice that you may have been planning or trying to use in the next few rounds. So that's quite an interesting mechanism. And yeah, so that's all the rules for discoveries. Again, once the game is ended, you just count points. Whoever has the most points will win. So let's go to my final thoughts about the game. So what do you think of discoveries? I really like it a lot. I played Cedrick's previous game, Lewis and Clark, and it was John and I's favorite game of 2013. And so I was very excited to hear that Cedrick has teamed up with Vincent, the artist, again to come up with this new game, Discoveries, based on Lewis and Clark. You can think of Discoveries as a lighter version of Lewis and Clark, but still retaining the feel of Lewis and Clark. You can decide to whether you want to rush and score all the small point expeditions before anyone else can take it, because if you are fast enough, you can get quite a lot of the cards, and you can screw up a lot of people's plans, and they may have wanted to do like a 2-turn, complete 2 expeditions and then get an extra turn and do extra stuff. But if you're fast and quick enough and nimble enough, you could probably get quite a few of it before other players do. So that would be the rush strategy. Or you can plan and wait and store power, how we term it, store power. So you're storing a lot of your, you're getting a lot of, you build up, you get a lot of Native American Indians, you get a lot of grey dice, you're building up, you're charging up all your different actions, and then during your one big turn, you can complete 2 expeditions, and then you get extra turn, and then you can try to do something else with it and get a lot of benefits with that one single power turn. So players who do that can often catch up to players who have done the nimble and rush strategy. So this feels very much like Lewis and Clark in that way, because in Lewis and Clark, it is a race game. You can do small steps to get to the end, or you can wait and store power and then jump right to where the people who have taken the smalls have been. So it feels very similar to Lewis and Clark in that way. The symbols, you may take me a bit of time to get used to them, similar to Lewis and Clark as well, but the manual has a very good details explanation of what all the different cards do at the back, and after a while you get used to it. It's quite straightforward what the symbols mean. It feels like a more efficient version of Lewis and Clark, but that doesn't mean that you cannot have both copies in your shelf. Alright, I feel that there are still 2 different games, alright, because one is the racing element and this is like a card management, set collecting type of game. So I feel that there's still room for both of them. So this is another hit from Cedrick again, and I met Cedrick as well at Asmodee, and he's a very nice guy. So I'm glad that this is another hit from him, and I will recommend Discoveries. So thanks for watching,